Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Missy, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make the best sourdough pancakes. So one of the things that you need for sourdough, really anything, is a little bit of patience. Sometimes these recipes are take a couple days to do. This is kind of one of them, a little bit. So I last night went ahead and fed my starter. So all I did is I keep mine in a bowl. I had it in the fridge. I took it out at dinner time, let it sit at room temp just for about an hour or so. I feel like it's easier to mix it when it's not ice cold out of the fridge. And then I just added a little bit of flour, a little bit of water. I have a video that I'll link below that shows exactly how I started my starter. I just started a new one fairly recently, so this one isn't very old. And I don't measure exactly. There are tons of recipes out there and instructions that show you exactly by weight, by grams, ounces, cups, water to flour ratio that you can use. In my experience, I've had sourdough for probably about a decade now, on and off. It's a lot more forgiving than it seems. If you read all that stuff, it could be a little intimidating. The rule that I have always heard about and followed and seems to never let me down is you can never overfeed a starter, but you can underfeed it. So I always give mine a lot of flour, especially when I'm doing recipes like this, or the English muffins, or waffles, or whatever. I'm putting probably about a cup and a half of flour in here, and then I just use plain old tap water and I mix it with a metal fork. I know some people don't like to use metal with your sourdough. I've never had a problem. So I mix that with my fork until all the flour seems to be hydrated a little bit into the starter. Close it, leave it on the counter overnight. So now it is the next day and I'm ready to use it. You can do pancakes directly from the starter that you have in the fridge. I have done that. It works. They taste great. They are a little bit fluffier if you let it do that overnight ferment, or even 24-hour ferment is even better. So you have lots of options here. It's not as rigid as it may appear. When I first started doing sourdough, I was like treating it like a chemistry project and doing everything exactly by ounces and grams, and I was so afraid I was going to kill it and what I was doing. And with experience, you learn it's a lot more forgiving than that. So with this recipe, I will link it below. You can very easily do doubles, triples, quadruple the recipe. It works well. I've done that a million times. The basic recipe is 1 cup of fed overnight fermented starter. You're not really looking to add any other flour to that because you've already fermented all the flour in there instead of adding raw flour to it. At least that's what I try to do. Some recipes are just a little bit of starter and then fresh flour. I'm looking for it to be fully fermented overnight. I don't know the science to it enough to speak intelligently, but there is an acid that is eaten up by the bacteria in the sourdough, I believe, that helps your gut health. I do notice a difference. For me, I don't have celiac, I don't have a gluten or wheat allergy, but I notice a difference if I eat a Kodiak Cakes pancake versus a sourdough pancake. They sit better in my stomach. That's the way to describe it. The way I explain it to other people is, that Thanksgiving feeling where you feel so bloated and full. I used to get that after eating a lot of wheat stuff. Like if I had a pancake breakfast, I'd feel like just bloated and full. When I have sourdough or wheat-free products, I don't get that. So that's one of the appeals of sourdough to me and feeding it to my family. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So like I said, you can take this recipe and you can expand it or contract it however much you want. There's just a basic ratio of 1 cup of the sourdough starter mix that has been fermented. Then you're going to add an egg, honey for both sweetness and it helps give a little bit of color, salt for flavor, and baking soda. The baking soda is going to react to the acid in the sourdough. It's going to create lots of bubbles and make your pancakes super spongy, soft, and delicious. And the only tip I can give you is you can mix the pancake batter 10 minutes before, an hour before you're ready to cook it. I don't add the baking soda till the very last minute because baking soda reacts with liquid and I want that chemical reaction when I make the pancakes. It's okay if it sits there for a couple minutes as you're doing, cycling through your pancakes. You can use an electric griddle. I've done that before, but I've been really into my cast iron pans lately, so that's what I'm going to make mine in today. And the key to making anything in cast iron dough related so it doesn't stick is you want your cast irons to be hot. You don't want to be putting anything in a cold cast iron. So I am getting all my cast irons out. I get them preheated and I just put a bit of fat in there. You can use coconut oil, avocado oil, bacon fat, whatever you choose to use. I let that sit there, and I actually turn my pans on before I even start making the batter, just so that they are, good and hot. And then all I do is just make your pancakes. You can make them as big or as small as you want. I kind of like them. I like to make my pancakes kind of on the bigger side, but just big enough where I can still fit them in my pop-up toaster, because I like to freeze mine, and then throughout the week I pull one out for Paul and we heat it up and have it for breakfast. You can do add-ins like blueberries or nuts or raisins, all sorts of things. Chocolate chips, that is Paul's current favorite add-in to pancakes. I do those for him. For actually making the batter, here you can see I'm taking I use this big scooper. I don't actually know what the actual size of it is. I'm just eyeballing mine completely, and I'm doing a 2-egg pancake recipe, which it makes, I'd say, about 6 to 8 pancakes or so. So I just put that in a new bowl. I'm going to add in 2 eggs. I'm going to add in, you can see I'm eyeballing here, some honey and some salt. And then before I add the baking soda, I kind of just give the pancake batter a look and see if this is the texture I want. This is where I completely go off recipe and just, I know there's a certain texture that I want it to be. So if the pancake batter is too thin, I thicken it up with one of two things. I either use just some quick cooking oats, or I use some almond flour, and the goal of this is just to add enough to make it to the consistency that I want. I like mine to be thicker because I like a thicker pancake. If you don't, and you cook it like this, it'll just be a thinner pancake, that's all. So after I've done that, I'm going to add my baking soda and give that a little stir. And I don't know if the camera will pick this up or not, but there's lots of little bubbles in here that you can see, and that's a really great sign. So then I'm going to take the same scoop that I took to take my starter out of the bowl, and I'm going to use that to portion out my pancakes in my cast iron. And what I've learned is the key to pancakes is to try to only flip them once. So what I'm looking for is lots of bubbles coming up through all of the pancakes. Then on the edges, it will just look set and like tacky and not wet. Like if you were to touch the very edge of the pancake, nothing would stick to your finger. It's like cooked and set. And that's when I flip. So then after you flip them, you just let them sit there for another 30 seconds or so, and they should be good. And then I take them out of the skillet. I like to serve ours immediately with some grass-fed butter and some honey or some maple syrup. They're delicious. For freezing them, I just put them on a baking sheet lined with a sill pad so they don't stick, and I shove them in the freezer for just a couple hours till they're hard, and then I take them off the sill pad and I put them in a baggie and throw them in the freezer, and we eat those throughout the week. This is probably my favorite thing to do with sourdough. By far, with everything that we make, the pancakes are the best. They just taste so good. They remind me of like IHOP pancakes. They're super big and fluffy. You can just never get that texture from a box mix, in my opinion. It's basically the yeast impact of the sourdough that makes them so just delicious. But I will leave tons of information below if you're interested in making these. If you do, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.